Hi, welcome to Brighter Horizons episode 5. Today I'm going to be joined by Andy Ward, who's our technical whiz. Andrew, who is normally with me by my side at the podcasts, has just had a little boy called Grayson, so he's out of the picture. But he'll be back in future podcasts. So, Andy, how are you doing? Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yep, I'm Andy. I'm the technical guy for Solarglide. I get involved with generally the technical side of the manufacture, the installations. I do a lot of R&D as well to help us bring out new products, development on existing products to improve them as much as we can, try and stay ahead because there's always something new and something we can improve it and make better.
Yeah, what I love about you, Andy, is that if we've got some difficult projects that come through, you're the first guy that everybody turns to. You sort of have a look through and you come up with ideas. Sometimes when a project looks impossible, you always come up with something that can...
There's always a way. Not always a straightforward way, but there's usually a way of coming up with a solution to fix something.
Yeah, because some of the windows are ridiculously awkward and stuff, and it's...
Yeah, that's it. We do a lot of stuff where there's a lot of other companies or businesses, architects who come up with weird and wacky designs. There's a lot of companies that would say that it just can't be done, and that's where obviously a lot of the time we thrive.
Absolutely love it, don't we?
With a solution to fix something. It's one of the things I always say is if you can dream it, we can make it.
That's one of Solarglide's strengths, isn't it? We if anything comes on our table and we think, oh my God, that looks a really difficult job, we'll do everything we can to kind of come up with a solution. Even if it's something outside of the norm, where we have to 3D print something or we have to test and analyze it way before it goes out. So
well, that's it. We've got a lot of capabilities where we can do in-house CAD design and manufacture and prototyping as well. Not just for solutions to unusual problems, but even on the existing products we've got, we're still, every time, we're constantly looking at what we've already got and how it can be made better. Because even if something's the run of the mill and we've been producing it for years, there's always something that can be improved and made better, whether it be a change of components, how it's manufactured, or just anything to improve the system. So we're always looking to make things better all the time, not just new stuff, but existing stuff. And
I think that's important as a business to do that, otherwise you get left behind, don't you?
Yeah.
Right, so today I want to focus on motorization of blinds and the way that motorization is starting to dominate the industry and everything's starting to change. In the past, we've always had manually operated blinds, and don't get me wrong, they're still in operation and we still supply them on a regular basis. But there's lots of advantages to having motorization over a manual. Do you want to just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, motorization's been around for at least 20 years now. I mean, I've been in the industry for 33 years now, believe it or not, in and out. And we've been dealing with motorization for at least 20 years, but it's really the last sort of 5 years-ish, maybe 10 years, where systems have improved so much that it's now so easy to install and so easy to operate. The advantages of going over motorized over manual is there's multiple things. There's not all blinds are easily accessible. That's the first thing, is that you may have high-level blinds, you might have roof blinds which are out of reach, and to manual operate them with cords or crank-operated or chains can be either awkward, difficult, impossible, or it would leave things hanging from the ceiling, which in your way. By motorizing them, it means that an inaccessible blind can be controlled from anywhere, either locally by that person in the bridge, or it could be connected to an automation system or a building management system. When I say building management, obviously it's on a ship, but it's basically it's an enclosed ecosystem where the blinds are connected to the temperature, the glare, the solar gain that's coming in, and can be set to automatically open and close to try and regulate the temperature and the light in that room. The other advantages of going over motorization over manual is you're not interacting with the blind directly as such, which is even more important in passenger areas where it's not somebody's house, so they tend not to look after things as well as they normally would. So if you've got a chain operated or a cord operated blind and it's a passenger, it's not their house, they assume because it's a ship that things are built to industrial standards, and then they can take of a weight of a 30-stone bloke hanging off the chain, but obviously they're not designed to do that. It's a blind. So they do tend to get treated quite roughly. By motorizing the blind, it takes that control away from the passenger where you're not physically touching the blind. So it means that if they are motorized and allowed to be controlled by the passenger, it's pressing the button to control the blind, so you're not actually interfering with the blind, or you can completely remove that control from the customer, whereby that's the crew and the staff who control the blind, so there's no physical interaction with the blind. So that means because they're not getting touched, the longevity of the blind is increased, tenfold.
Yeah, and it also means that, like with manual, you have a lot of external components as well that you use to operate these blinds.
Yes.
They can get damaged if they're not looked after. You're right about passengers. Passengers they don't look after things. Some do, but some don't. They just let the blind smash back into the cassette. It can damage the film, the fabric. So yeah, it's definitely a positive step forward. The only problem you've kind of got in passenger areas is if it's motorized, people still think it's a manual blind, and they might have a little sort of pull on the blind to see if
around to find the controls to where to operate it. Yeah, that can happen, but generally because there's no controls there, the only thing you can pull on is the actual hem bar of the blind itself. And once you find that that's not moving, unless you're really, really pulling it, there's not a lot of damage you can do. So it is more robust than a manual system, definitely.
So all of our product range, we're kind of moving towards motorized. We've got a lot of motorization throughout the whole range already, but there's lots of products that we've had for a long time, such as pleated, that are now becoming battery operated. They're becoming motorized, so that's great as well. So our long-term goal is to have motorization for all of our products that we offer at the moment. So that's quite exciting. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how they are powered and how they are controlled? So if we're installing a big project, say on the bridge of a ship, and we've set all the blinds up, say 30 or 40 blinds, what are the options there? How would the crew on the navigational bridge control that?
Yeah, well, so there's a few options for control-wise. When it comes to motorization, there's a direct local control. What we call a dumb motor is basically it's got no intelligence of transmitters or receivers. A dumb motor is basically it's a hardwired system which is connected directly to the physical switch on the bridge of a ship. In simple terms, it's got power to go up, power to go down. The limits are set between the two, but you actually give it electricity to make it go up, and you give it power in the opposite polarity to make it go down. It's quite a simple system. It's easy to fit. The only downside is that you need extra cabling from each blind to that local control side. The next option, what we tend to favour, is wireless control. Thereby, you still give a mains or a power to the blind itself, but the control is done by wireless. So it's a wireless transmitter. It can be a hand remote. It could be still a fixed control, which is attached to the control system of a ship, but the actual signal itself is transmitted directly to that blind. That reduces the amount of wiring needed for the system, because all you need is power to the blind. Everything else is wireless, so it cuts down on installation. It also gives a lot more flexibility to the control of the blind, because if you imagine if you had 30 blinds on a bridge of a ship and they were hardwired into a fixed controls, when they are initially installed, all the cabling's put in for those controls on the ship, and that's determined to be, say, 2 switches. One switch does the left-hand 15 and one switch does the right-hand 15. If at some point you find that doesn't work or doesn't give you the flexibility of the control that you want, you're going to have to do a lot of rewiring to reconfigure the system. When it's wirelessly controlled, each blind can be given either its own channel or in group control to control the blinds in sets or individually as they want. And if you find in a few months, weeks or years down the line that you want to change that configuration, that can all be done by reprogramming that remote. So it gives you a future-proofing the setup of the system, which can be reconfigured as many times as you want to try and give you the flexibility of how you need.
Yeah, because when my experience of being on a bridge as well, they do look for a lot of sections rather than just one or two.
Yeah.
So having the wings as a separate sort of
Yeah.
entity for the blinds, having the forward spaces split into 3 or 4
Yeah.
because they're so big. It just depends where the sun's coming round on the ship, and it makes a big difference, doesn't it? Motorization, in terms of the motors that you've been involved in your fitting, which one? We offer Ellard and we offer Somfy. Do you want to give a little bit more information about them brands?
Well, so over the years, we have dealt with, tested, or used pretty much every motor manufacturing system in the world ever produced. A lot of the time, every time a new system comes out, we always buy samples, we test them to see if it's something that we could either take on board and expand our range, or if it's something better. In general, we've always found that we've come back to a core of 2 companies that you suggested, which is the Ellard and the Somfy, because the number of failures and the flexibility of the system has always been so consistent with those 2 companies. Obviously, when you're shipping something halfway around the world and it's on the bridge of a ship, which is a moving target, you don't want failures. It's the last thing we want. So we want something which is going to be fit, forget about it, and it's going to last.
Reliable.
Basically reliability forever. Ellard and Somfy are the 2 that we've always come back to. So from the robustness of the system and the reliability as one aspect, which has always been brilliant with the 2 companies, and the ease of setup, programming, and customer use is good. Some of the other systems that have we've tried, which have got the reliability, but the programming, the setup, or the flexibility is so complicated, which is fine from our installation point of view. But once that ship goes into use and the customer wants to change something or it needs a reprogram, trying to get that information to them is very difficult. And some of the other systems need, not saying that some of the complicated ones don't for the Somfy, but a lot of the other companies' systems need specific programming units, which are very expensive to do the setup of the blinds. Whereas the Somfy and the Ellard, the core ones that we use, everything can be done from either the motor or the remote that we supply.
So it's easy when our service team go out because we've got all the gear that you need to do all that, and we can do that. But a lot of the times our customers will use the crew or engineers on board to install the blinds. Or if it's going into dry dock or if it's going to a shipyard, then the guys that work within them venues to do it themselves. So you're right, making things as simple as possible is the way forward, and we do offer.
You want something that's easy to manufacture, easy to fit, reasonably well priced and competitive, something that's reliable, and something that's easy for us to program and set up, and also easy for the end user to be able to adjust, change, or reset if they need to.
Do you want to give us a little bit of information about the progressive noise of these motors? So what's happened over the years, where we're at currently?
Yeah, so noise levels on motorised blinds going back 20 years, it was, you could hear someone operating a motorised blind 3 rooms down. The new systems that have come out have progressed so much that the noise levels have come down massively. And it's not just the technology in the motor which silences them. There's been improvements in technology in the way that the motors are mounted into the tubes, the actual barrels, or the systems themselves, which help reduce noise further. And then on some of the bigger systems that we do, we use what we call a honeycomb tube. So it's a double-layered tube, which acts as a sound baffle also, which further reduces the noise. And that coupled with the 2 systems that we do, not just for the actual what we call a hardwired, where it's either mains powered or low voltage, but the battery systems have come along leaps and bounds in the last 2 years with the new lithium-ion batteries, and how they work is it's brilliant.
So we've installed a few cruise projects recently where the noise of the motors is one of the reasons why they were swapping the blinds out. So it is a key factor for the guys on board the navigational bridge. They do like calm and peace when they're doing their day-to-day operations.
Silence.
Exactly. Okay, just quickly then, can we talk a little bit about installation? Now, you're a qualified electrician yourself, so you know what you're talking about. When it comes to us going on board and doing our stuff and fitting everything, what happens when it comes to connecting the final commissioning of the system? What do we do?
What do we do? Well, there's a few options. It depends on the system, because you've got, if it's a wired-in system, it could be low voltage. 12, 24 volts are the sort of the common low voltage ones. Those, because it's extra low voltage, anybody can muck around with that. It's not a problem. The next step up is you've got your 110 volt and your 240 volt. Obviously, there's a lot more danger in that, where you then need a qualified electrician to do the final connections. What we tend to do is we'll take a safety connection box for these systems. We'll do a temporary connection to the ship's power supply to program the motors, and then we'll ask for the ship's engineers stroke qualified electricians to do the final connections. Because although we've got qualified electricians in our company and we can do the final connections, it's not just the safety aspects, it's the sign-off and the insurance side of it. So which is why we get the bridges electricians to do the final connections, because obviously they're certified and insured to do the electrical works on board that ship.
Yeah, that's really important, isn't it? So we'll get it to the point where it's ready to be connected.
Yeah.
Often as well, when you go on board ships where they've had, they've been in operation for 10, 15, 20 years, the wiring that's on board can be quite complex.
It's not just the complexity of it, because it's also, it's the condition of the wiring, should we say, is when you've got some of these ships are older than me, and that's pretty old.
Yeah.
Is that some of the wiring isn't great, and they've been adjusted, they've been added to, they've been changed and altered.
Chock blocks put everywhere.
Connections after connections and electrician's tape and bits of wire. And the last person that touches any of that cables is the person who's going to be responsible. So you may do an absolute perfect job in the final connection, but if you're tying to something which is dubious, let's say, and there's a fault, then you're going to be responsible for that. Whereas at least the bridges electricians know the system, they know what it's capable of, they know the nuances of it and what they can get away with and what's sort of safe. And if they have any problems further down the line of what they're connecting to, they can actually go in and rectify that while they're in, because obviously we wouldn't be expected to go then and fix the existing cable.
Well, safety is paramount for what we do. So we'll always do our job as far as we can, and then we'll hand it over to the electricians on board. Now, the problem you've got sometimes is the electrician, maybe one or two of them on board, and if it's a cruise ship of 6,000 people, they have a lot of work going on a daily basis. So you really have to get your timing right. You need to be organised to make sure they're available on the day for when you need to do it. So that's important, and we always like to make sure they do their side of the job before we leave and sign it off.
Yeah, well, that's
so
it. We'll work together. We'd never leave them in a situation where they can't operate the blinds, which is why when we do the installation, we take everything to the point where everything is complete. All the blinds are programmed and function, and the last thing they need to do is just that last final connection of tying to the bridge's power, which is a quick job, but it's just down to the...
So just to give a rundown of kind of what we're motorising, we motorise our key flagship product, the solar screens, which go onto the wheelhouse of a bridge. We also motorise our blackout blinds and dim out blinds that go into cabins. We're motorising now pleated blinds that go onto doors and they go onto hatches. And you can motorise as far as sort of curtains and tracks and all that sort of stuff as well, which is a little bit different to the blind side, but not too dissimilar. And also we've got all our wiper systems, which are already electric, and that we've been installing them for a good number of years as well. So we've got a good package of all the products that are needed for a ship.
Everything we make can be motorised to some extent. All of our roller systems, like I mentioned, the solar screens or the blackouts and the dim outs, basically any kind of roller blind can be easily motorised.
That brings us quickly on to battery operated motorised systems. They're becoming more popular. The batteries are lasting for longer.
Yeah.
And it means that you haven't got any of the hassles of the wiring itself. You can just plug and play. It's just putting the...
Yeah, it's a standalone system that basically needs to be fitted and it will just operate.
And then when the battery itself does actually finally run out of energy, you can charge it like you would a phone. Is that right? You plug it in, you take it out. It's very easy to gain access to them motors. Yeah. And that's becoming more popular.
Yeah, well, that's it. And the last couple of years, the lithium-ion battery systems that have come out have been absolutely tremendous.
Wow.
And we've got a battery system for every kind of blind we do now, for pleated, Venetian, roller blinds, even curtain tracks now have got a battery system. Depending on the size of the blind, we've got batteries for roller blinds that will tow a car. You know, we could do a blind 4 meters wide, 6 meters drop on a battery motor. They are incredible, and the way the batteries last now with the lithium ion battery, I mean, on a sensible size blind, we could have a battery system that, without charging, would last 12 months between charges, and under normal use of, sort of a couple of times up and down a day would easily last 12 months. Now, those then can be coupled with a solar panel, which trickle charges the batteries, which then basically, depending on time of year and location, as long as you've got sun, would potentially negate the need for ever charging that battery, or at worst, it would prolong the spans between the boost charges, what we call, where you might need to give it a little bit of a boost just to top it back up again. It might extend that period between charges to 18 months to 2 years if you ever need to charge them at all.
Brilliant. Well, you could say that motorisation is going to make the human race a bit more lazy, but I think it's going to make us a bit more efficient, because that means you can, instead of spending a good amount of time operating your blinds, you can focus on the other things that are more important on board, right? So
yeah, well, definitely. I mean, there was a time and motion study carried out where a company wanted to bear in mind, this is land-based. It was an office where they had 300, I think it was about 350 blinds, and they wanted to crank operated blinds on everything. Wow. And they were going to have them closed at the night by the night staff, and then opened in the morning. And someone did a time and motion, and then of how long it would take this guy to open all the blinds, or a team of two, and then close them in the morning. And the wages just for the time period that this guy was going to have to be paid to open and close the blinds was the cost of motorising paid was less than this guy's wages for a year.
Wow.
And obviously that was just for the first year. Then every year after that, they're saving money. So when you've got multiple blinds and you've got staff and crew, which have got probably more important things to do on a ship than open and close blinds, like steering and things, it can, it doesn't sound like a lot to open a blind, but if you're doing it regularly, several times a day, if it's going light and dark,
and there's hundreds of windows on these ships as well, so
then you want to be focusing your time on the important stuff rather than the mundane things of
as a passenger as well, who doesn't want to have a motorised blind over a manual? It just makes that more that better experience, doesn't it? In your cabin, a bit more luxury. You're paying a lot of money to go on these cruises. You want the best experience you can.
It's
just
not
little
that,
things.
But people tend to expect a little bit more on these things for the cruise ship. I mean, a lot of customers and people in houses are go motorised now. So if they've got these in their homes, when you go to a fancy ship or a nice yacht or a cruise ship, they're sort of expecting that as well. Because why wouldn't you want the best of the best?
Exactly, so that's good. Just to round it off then, is there any sort of things that are coming through that are new to the motorisation industry? Is there stuff that we can expect? Is there anything you want to talk about?
A new thing which is coming through is different ways, because there's always been options of tying the blinds, whether it be hardwired or wireless control, into sort of a home automation hubs and things like that, or like sort of building management systems. The new things that are coming through are new ways to control them. Batter and thread are becoming more and more prominent now in the motor side, and a lot of motor manufacturers are jumping on the bandwagon, and this is going to be the next big thing, whereby historically, when you wanted to control things through a hub, you would need a dedicated hub to control these, whereas a lot of the matter and thread ones, the new phone systems that are coming off, are actually acting as your home hub, so you don't need additional controls. So when you're controlling the blinds through your phone, you're not connecting through the internet to a hub, and then the hub then transmits a signal to the blind. You're controlling the blind direct from your phone. And you've then got ability to control all the blinds. You've got feedback of knowing what position they are. And this can be done anywhere in the world or locally in front of the blind. They're then able to communicate with anything else on the matter and thread system. So it's always monitoring stuff like of the temperature levels, light levels, wind levels, things like that. And then it can be automated, and it's always basically to the point where you're not actually controlling the blinds. The blinds know what you want them to do and will do it by themselves. So that time you're saving going from manual to automated blind is then saved again because you're not doing anything. The blinds just do what they need to do when they need to do it.
I mean, just fast forward 30 years and imagine what people are going to be saying about how we used to operate blinds and how prehistoric it kind of was, you know, but that's exciting. Everything we've talked about today has all been maritime related. It's to do with the blinds that we fit on the ships. But a lot of what you've talked about today, Andy, kind of applies to land-based and people in domestic settings as well. So it's relevant, and it's sort of going that way, not only offshore, onshore as well, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It's everything we've done and do is applicable to anybody with a window, basically. So it's domestic in your house, it's commercial, office-based, industrial, anywhere there's a window. But obviously we focus a lot on maritime. I mean, the industry for motorization has always been driven by, initially for the high-end stuff, for the bespoke high-end domestic market. That's then trickled over as the systems have improved and become more prevalent. The costs come down, and then it's been sort of the commercial side. And then obviously as the commercial side look at it, and then what's available in the luxury shipping side is then taken over, and then that then again filters back down to the commercial shipping, where it's just a nice thing to have on all boats, not just the high end, because the costs of the motorization have come down so much that I think people will be pleased to hear that the costs are coming down. It's accessible to anybody now. The costs are surprisingly cheap to motorize over manual. Yeah, I'll be looking at them for my home as well at some point. I haven't done it quite yet, but yeah. So Andy, well, thank you very much for sort of taking part today. Your knowledge, I'm sure, will come across very well, and it's great to hear how things are changing within the industry. Thanks for tuning in to Bright Horizons podcast. You can find us on YouTube for past episodes or any future ones. We do this every month. You can also check us out on social media and our website, solarglide.com. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next time. Thanks, Andy. No problem. See you later.